mean,
No.
yeah, it's very rare. It's very rare that you find an actor or a celebrity that is that way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so for example, I was telling a story to someone the other day because Zachary Levi, he's been
Yep.
he's been in the press quite a bit as of late, and I was attesting to his character. I was on I don't know if you remember the TV show Chuck back in the
Yeah.
early okay, yeah. So that was where he got his big break was
Right.
Chuck.
I remember.
Yeah, and I was on the set of Chuck, and I was watching this guy, and I was at a distance, just he was all by himself, just kind of walking around, rehearsing his lines, and this extra came walking in, and I went, I want to see how he reacts because they tell you when you get on the set, they tell you you can't if the background people do not talk with the celebrities, don't get near them, stay out of their eye line, all that stuff. So this one dude walks up to him, and Zach turns and goes, "Hey, what's up?" And the guy goes, "Hey, I'm new to LA. I was just wondering, how do I do this? How can I get to a point where you are? Any tip will help me." And he goes, "Oh yeah, all right. Well, hey, you got a couple minutes?" And he goes, "Yeah, okay." So he started to walk with this kid and started talking about it. I go, that was cool. And he has no idea that I was watching him.
Right.
No idea. Adam Sandler's the same way. Adam's the same way. He'll, hey buddy, thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Looks you in the eye, shakes your hand, all that stuff. So there's some real gems that are in there, but for the most part, they're
there are. They shot a movie here. Clooney and Renee Zellweger shot Leatherheads here.
Oh gosh, I forgot about Leatherheads. Yeah,
and
all right.
I was not on that crew, but I knew a guy that was. He said they were the same way, especially her. She was amazing.
Really?
And after everything wrapped, this was back, a good while back. All the crew got iPod Nanos with an engraving thanking them for working on the show.
Oh, that's cool.
From Renee. So.
Oh, that's fun. That's really cool. That is awesome.
Anyway.
So, okay, Mike, we're live.
Yes.
What's up, buddy?
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Armageddon PSYOP, the movie. I'm kind of joined here at the last minute. Just met a new friend, Mark Cochran, from a mutual friend or an acquaintance of yours, Mark, and that is Alan Morton.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan just called me out of the blue. He says, "Hey, I met this guy. He's done a short movie. It's great." He was talking about budgets and stuff, and he's a Christian. And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Do you mind if, I get you guys together?" And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And Mark and I just talked briefly, before the show right now. And Mark, it's just incredible how much stuff we have in common. Mark's been studying globalists and technocracy and transhumanism ever since the 70s.
Oh, dang.
Wow. And also the
I'm a lot older than I look.
What's that?
I'm a lot older than I look.
So he's really gonna like the plot and the theme here of trying to expose the threats of Talmudic Zionism and how evangelical Zionism are kind of like the useful idiots to these globalists, and what we're trying to stop as far as preterists, whether you're partial preterist or full preterist. We really see the nonsense going on with the evangelical Zionism and how it's just destroying our foreign policy. And that's what this movie is really about. We're really sometimes subtly, sometimes directly, taking this beast on. And what we haven't done yet, we haven't done a show where Brett's been able to, again, we gave the script over to Brett. Brett looked at it, said, there's a lot of changes that need to take place here. Brett has just an incredible imagination. I mean, he's really gifted in this area, and he was able to bring about 3 or 4 stories, interweave them all together and connect them at the end and make it a real action movie. And what I liked, Mark, about your film, First Do No Harm, is I was like, oh, this is going to be like one of those Hallmark, anti-abortion movies. Okay, whatever. And, I see it, and the guy grabs the gun from the cop, and he's, they're ex-military. And I'm like, yeah. And the logic of that movie I mean, it was brilliant, and it was all done in like 20 minutes. That
Yeah.
was cool.
Well, the interesting thing about it is when I concepted that, my whole idea was to produce something that would allow people to start a conversation and not even to answer the question, just to leave it. As you know, it hangs in the air. There's a question at the end, and that's it.
Right.
Was to allow people to start a conversation and think about this thing in a way they probably never have before. So,
Amen. And I'm going to play the trailer to that at the very end here, and I want to work you in after Brett does his overview of the movie. I want to talk to you, and we want to get your advice on how to pitch it, and because you took on you were in the belly of the beast when it came to, this is the hot potato in Hollywood. You don't talk about abortion, and now we have a serious hot potato here, Zionism.
mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you avoid being called anti-Semitic? I don't think you can really.
No.
But Brett in the movie, you can see he has kind of guarded against that. And maybe we can talk about that at some point.
Good.
But Brett, why don't you take it away and just kind of give us what you've done with the script, maybe, the main characters and the plot and the theme.
Sure. Mike, would you want me to start out kind of with like when I got I'll just kind of wrap a little bit. So when Mike sent, and Mark doesn't know the backstory, like I guess the nuances and the details of when I got it and my ideas and things like that. So when I first got it, Mark, so I have a script right now that's kind of floating around that I've been pitching and everything else. It's won some awards. So Mike had sent me his script and his book. I wanted to read his book first. I read Armageddon Deception before I read it. And Mike would hit me up from time to time. Hey, have you read the script yet? I'm like, nah, I kind of want to get into your mind. I want to see where you're coming from. I want to see what's going on here. And I'd already been watching Mike too. So I already had an idea, but I definitely wanted to read the book. I wanted to see what he was trying to get across in his screenplay. So then I sat down and I started to read the screenplay and I went, okay, I'm reading it. Pretty dialogue heavy to start. And I went, okay. All right, we got it. So I was just going through, I'm just trying to, as an audience perspective, I'm looking at it and going, okay, we need an inciting incident to start the film. There's got to be something that catapults us right into it. It didn't have it. And I went, all right. And so I started to just kind of traverse the script and I went, okay, I know what I'm going to do, because it was really localized first. The script was very localized. And I went, if he's looking for something global, we need to be overseas. We need to go. Am I still there? Am I frozen? I feel like
you're frozen. Okay. But we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me okay? Okay, good. Because I'm sitting there watching myself like this. I'm in Tableau. Like that. So anyway, I went, if we're looking to do this, because there was mentions in the script, obviously the main character, Chris Hunt. Well, we have a few main characters now, but Chris being one of them. He's the mixed martial artist. He comes from a family, the parents are missionaries, and the parents go overseas, but we don't see anything that happens, and things happen to the parents, and you go, well, one, I'd like to see that, but two, I'd like to change the location and really make it more personal. So from there, I went, I know exactly where this is going to take place. I did not like the withdrawal from Kabul, from Afghanistan, and most Americans didn't. It was botched. And I went, I want the aftermath of that. I want people to see exactly what that landscape would look like with $80 billion worth of military machinery and weapons left in the hands of these guys, and what that looks like for these civilians that are over there. And I went, okay, so I'm going to start out there. So that's exactly what we did. And I created a character named Habib. Habib is my Middle Eastern Rambo. So I created Habib, and Habib used to be, so he is an apostate. He was once a Muslim, but he converted to Christianity. So he's got major issues over there, right? If he's a Christian and he used to be Muslim, but now he's a missionary over there. He's a part of a missionary team. So it starts out there, and their whole food bank that they work at, it gets infiltrated. It gets infiltrated by this militia, this Afghan militia. So from there, Habib, he turns on the heat because once upon a time, he was one of them, right? But also, we come to find out as the script carries on, is he was an interpreter in Afghanistan once upon a time on a special unit with Americans. And that's happening in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, we have Chris Hunt that's over in the States, and he's training to pursue his dream as a mixed martial artist. And he gets news from his dad and his mom, hey, we're not going to your first big match, buddy, because we're going overseas to Afghanistan to meet with our online church that we have. And Chris is going, are you kidding me? How could you do this to me? You're actually going to go overseas and go link up with a bunch of people you don't know. And do you know what's going on over there? Right? Because what we ended up doing was at the beginning of the film, we start in the present. And then once we get kind of, oh, shoot, that inciting incident, we go 6 weeks earlier and we go to Chris and his family. And it leads up to the point of what happened in Afghanistan, in Kabul. And from there, Chris's parents, obviously, what happens to them is devastating because they are overseas, they are Christians. And in Afghanistan, I shouldn't just say overseas, they could have been anywhere, but when they're in Afghanistan, they are these Christians that are in the Middle East. And so Chris is pretty upset about this. So from there, he kind of becomes on this FBI watch list. And things unfold from there. And he's followed by an FBI agent by the name of Mary Jo, and she was once upon a time a local police officer that we get this through conversation, that she was a local police officer, but she ended up putting in for the FBI, and you can tell that this job is starting to wear on her. And from there, we start to trail the story of Habib, the story of Chris, and then the story of Mary Jo, and all these stories start to intersect. But meanwhile, what's happening in the States, we have this synagogue bomber who was once upon a time, a Marine. He was once upon a time a Marine that converted to Islam. So now in the States, we have this guy who's this synagogue bomber who was once upon a time just probably a regular old dude in the military that converts to Islam. And now he's doing bad stuff in the States. So she's also trailing that case, but she's also looking at Chris. And the story you'll see why that she's keeping an eye on Chris, along with her partner, Agent Martinez, who is her mentor. So these stories intersect, interweave, and they all end up, as Mike was alluding to earlier, they all meet up in the end. And my inspiration when I read Mike's script, I said, this needs to be more global. And he had a mystery man involved that was kind of the puppet master behind the scenes that was making all this stuff kind of happen. The withdrawal from Afghanistan. You have the synagogue bomber thing going over here. He's also linked up with this guy who is he's involved not only in what's happening with the Afghan stuff, with what's going on with the synagogue bomber, but also too, he's also a debater who is going to debate this guy that we are introduced to at the beginning, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention him, is Dr. Richter. And Dr. Richter is a fella who is like I guess you could say like your Glenn Beck, Alex Jones, Michael Sullivan, kind of all wrapped in one. So he's mixed all in there, and it's leading up to this debate in the end. But I know as I'm explaining this, you go, wait, there's a debate in this? Believe me. It all comes together. What happened? What's going on in this guy's book, and what's happening with what we are seeing as the audience that's unfolding before our eyes. And it does come together at this debate. And then after the debate, what happened, right? Or what was really going on. So, but the thing is too, I don't want to be contrived. I didn't want to be banal with what I was writing. I wanted to make sure that everything was coming together and it wasn't on the nose. I didn't want everything just to be on the nose where we're going, oh, and then there's this, and then there's this. You're seeing this through motion picture, right? Because we do have a tendency as a writer, when we have a lot of information floating around our head, we want to flex a little bit and go, and then there's this. And then we want to tell too much instead of show. So I really wanted to show a lot, but when the people talk, it it's important and it makes sense where we go, okay, there's a point to what he's saying here. It's not just, oh, we're just going to load you up with information. And I think the movie, the screenplay as it sits, by the end of it, you go, okay, I got questions. That's interesting. I've seen, because that's really what I want to do. And I kind of learned this from Taylor Sheridan, who is the writer of Yellowstone and Sicario. He goes, when I write films, I ask questions. I'm asking questions. I don't give my political bent. I don't want to be beating people over the head with some agenda. I'm just asking questions, and I'm asking those questions on film. And I want the audience member to decide and to do their own work. So anyway, that's Armageddon PSYOP. I mean, I guess it's a gigantic, I was going to say in a nutshell, but a gigantic nutshell.
Well, Chris goes through a crisis of faith during this.
Yes.
So, you know, he's grown up in the mission field, and his dad's tent making skill is mixed martial arts. So Chris grows up knowing all kinds of mixed martial arts. So he's kind of the man's man in that regard, but he's also a theologian because his dad is a theologian and a missionary as well. So he grows up with that. So while he's training mixed martial arts, I wanted kind of a seminary set, but it might be a university. But he's a teacher assistant to a theological class. I don't know what it is, a New Testament survey. I don't know if we've given the class. But anyway, he's called to fill in for the instructor. And he's struggling with his faith because his parents just died. He feels like God has failed him. He's reading Matthew's gospel, and he sees that Jesus promised that his second coming would take place in their generation and in some of their lifetimes. And he's aware of the liberal arguments that Jesus promised this, it failed. You know, let's just take the moral teachings of Jesus and kind of fit it into a new world order. That's what the Rockefellers are doing with this kind of aspect of it. And so he gets in front of the class and he ditches the notes from the teacher, and he says to the students, what are you guys going to do with these passages? Jesus obviously failed. And if he failed to keep this promise, that explains why he failed me in my personal life, and my parents are dead. Now, there's someone in the class who's a preterist, and it really doesn't have to be a full preterist, or it could even be a partial preterist at this point. Because I know you've invoked Gary's book, Last Days Madness, which I think is perfect. So now we have a dialogue. We're dealing with some heart issues. We're dealing with forgiveness. We're dealing with theological, intellectual issues. And my whole point in making this movie is because I see Trump's weakness is his Zionism. And I can totally see a false flag taking place where we've let in all these Muslims. They're going to do a false flag attack, and it's going to draw us into that war. And that's what the globalists have been wanting for a very long time. I think plan A was to kill Trump. Plan B was to cheat. And plan C is to still try and kill him or use his weakness against him, which is his Zionism. And this movie focuses in on that. It focuses in on Muslim terrorist attacks, right? Because Chris is trying to stop that. And God is at the same time dealing with these intellectual problems that he's having. And then Dr. Richter comes along, right? Who is this student's father. And he's dealing with the political issues, and he's dealing with the theological issues because he's debating a Muslim apologist. And the topic of that debate is Matthew 24. The Muslim is going to argue Jesus failed. You Christians are a joke. That's why God raised up Muhammad to give us a better light, a better revelation. And now now Dr. Richter is going to take a totally different direction, takes this Muslim completely off guard. So if you're a preterist or you're even a Christian, this movie is going to raise all kinds of questions for you, to go out and study politically and theologically.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, obviously you hit it on the head. Excuse me. It's questions eschatologically, but also let's take a look back. Let's go. Let's Monday morning quarterback that whole withdrawal from Kabul. Let's take a look at that. What really happened, right? Like what was Trump's plan and what was Biden's plan? Biden had no plan, and so it causes us. It'll allow us to question that and why. What happens to these people that are overseas that were left behind, right? And what does that look like with our allies that did help us through the endless war of from 2001 to last year or 2 years ago, right? Like what happened to all these, like our interpreters? What happened to the guys that were actually helping us in that landscape? They're left behind. Are we going to go help them out when push comes to shove? And when people are we going to go get those people that are left behind? And there were some guys, right? There was that Operation Pineapple Express where there was actually where Glenn Beck was funding people or these groups, these ex-military guys. Hey, go overseas and get our people out of Kabul. We left them behind. So people should know that stuff. They should be looking into that, going, because that I would mention that to people. They go, wait, what happened? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So I'm hoping that the film it starts a conversation and it's multifaceted, the conversation. It's not just one lane where you're going, well, how about this? What about that? This part where they're talking about this, that's interesting to me. So you're exactly right, Mike. I think that this will start the conversation for sure.
Yeah. So Mark, that's kind of the movie in a nutshell. And of course we've sent you the script and you can, take your time on that and look it over. But so as far as your counsel in talking to you earlier before the show, you had this hot potato issue of abortion. You told me how some of the actors just totally bailed on you because it was too politically, it was too conservative. And these were supposed to be Christian actors and actresses. And so we also kind of have a hot potato here where we're taking on Zionism. And, so that's going to be an issue as well. And I don't have any experience at all in pitching the movie. We haven't even pitched it yet. We haven't even sent it to anybody yet.
Yeah, well, there are a number of things, you have to think about. I know, Brett, even from writing the script, you have to think about who your target audience is. What you want to elicit from them after they've seen it. And you're right. You have something that's it's hot potato, but it's also very specific in terms of the whole Zionist thing. And it's not a popular position to take. So I think if you can, like Brett, you were talking about not hitting things like hitting it straight on. If you can couch some of your concepts the left does this all the time. Did it with Archie Bunker. We all thought he was funny, but he was really feeding us, a liberal position. And we need to learn to do that, to be harmless as doves, but wise as serpents, So in terms of pitching, you might, depending on who you have, especially depending on who you have on screen, you might could pitch something like this as just a good intrigue, thriller, action movie, and let these other things just be there. In other words, I think if you pitch it as a full Predators film, it's going to go nowhere, because you're going to have all of Big Eva against you. You can have most of Reformed Eva against you, which we've seen, with Gary and what he's gone through.
Yep.
So if you kind of keep your cards close to the vest, maybe when you present this thing, and if people can see it and really like it, then those other things become secondary in the minds of, especially in the minds of distributors and those kind of people. They're looking at dollars and numbers, not so much the concepts.
Yep.
Although the fact of the matter is, if the concepts are repugnant enough, we've seen some really big films and things like that kind of get pushed aside by ideology. So I think you got to find line to walk. You kind of tiptoe through some of these minefields to slip it past them before they really know what what they've got.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right, Mark. That's why there was so much interweaving going on with the action, where you start out where that inciting incident, it grabs you. You go, oh man, that was intense. Okay, I'm in. And then from there, the story unfolds. But then you start to have that action interwoven with what's happening in the story. So you're engulfed in, okay, the lives of Chris, of this FBI agent, but also what's happening overseas in Kabul. Is this guy going to survive? And he's got 3 young missionaries with him that he has to keep alive. So you're going, okay, it's a thrill ride, but you're also getting that preterist perspective, but also that what's happening globally, to where it's not just an information dump. You're
Sure.
excited while you're watching it. But yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with you, man, for sure.
Well, speaking of, I don't know whether we want to talk about this right now publicly, but have you thought about guys like Caviezel or Gibson?
Oh yeah, Mike has definitely that's been his number one guy that he's been wanting to get this to. It's just so, the thing is,
I don't know how to.
Yeah, the thing is those guys are definitely hard to get to. And I mean, if you had the right representation, right? I mean, if I was with like CAA or UTA, I would be able to do that, right? Hey, I need an agent, go do this. But those are high caliber, right? Or Gersh agency. But then again, maybe not. None of those guys probably like Mel anymore. So.
Well, a lot of this, as you know, Brett, in this business, it's who you know. If you know somebody, like when I was doing First Do No Harm, I mentioned to Mike, there were some actors that I wanted, and two actors that had shown interest at the very beginning said, "Oh, I know that guy. I've worked with him on a film. I can get a hold of him." Mm-hmm. So if you can find those kind of connections, at least it's not going to ensure anything, but it may get your script in front of somebody.
Sure. Well, what I'm secretly hoping for is this:
no secret anymore.
And not anymore. Here it is, going public. So anyway. I've been in contact over the past 4 years with Dallas Saunier, and Dallas he's been kind of an email friend of mine. Him and I have never met in person, but Dallas, he's the executive producer for Daily Wire, but he also is the head of Bonfire Legend. Bonfire Legend, they did Bone Tomahawk with Kurt Russell, with Richard Jenkins. I mean, it's probably one of the best Westerns made in the last 2 decades, and it's a horror Western, which makes it unique and interesting. It's amazing. He also did Dragged Across Concrete with Mel Gibson.
Yep.
And so I have that direct line with Dallas, and Dallas recently, I pitched him, or I sent an inquiry letter to him, because I've been kind of on him for a little bit the past few years about wanting to be on some of his films. And he's like, yeah, we'll talk to my casting director. Here's David Guglielmo. And so I haven't talked to David in a while, but him and I were talking for a little bit about possibly casting me in something at some point. But Dallas, I've been keeping him updated on my other screenplay, The Rifle Brothers, the one that's been kind of floating around competitions and winning and things like that. And I finally told him, hey man, I've pitched to 10 different studios. 4 of them have taken it on to read it. One of them said the script is cool and edgy, and this is me being aggressive and trying to create the circus around my film, and give me a shot. And he said, okay, why don't you hack off 13 pages of your script and I'll read it. And I said, done. So I hacked off 13 pages. It wasn't easy, believe me, but I ended up submitting it to him, and he goes, sweet, good work. He said, I hope to be reading this soon. That was about a month ago. So as I'm sure you probably know, when it comes to the film world, when they say, well, we'll try to get back to you soon, it's going to be like 6 months to a year. But all that being said, he's good friends with Mel. So I'm hoping that this screenplay, the one that I wrote prior to Armageddon PSYOP, will be my calling card to where I can go, all right, he likes that script, let's talk, and here's another one. So that's I'm 6 degrees separation to Mel,
Yep.
so to speak. So we'll see.
Well, and the same thing is true of, like we mentioned, guys like Trejo and Vinnie Jones and
Yeah.
those guys. The guy that I worked with on that film has told me before, he said, I can get anybody in Hollywood. I can get in front of anybody in Hollywood. Said, you tell me who you want. Like we shot one little scene for Cross Wars at a Mexican restaurant here in town. Oh, just an exterior. They needed an exterior Mexican restaurant. So I went and shot it, and I got Danny Trejo to sign a picture for the owner of the restaurant. He's got it hanging up in his restaurant now.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
So, there's a possibility that we could bring somebody on like that could make those contacts. But that's the ways down the road. But
and you're right. I think Mel Gibson has been kind of my heart's desire where this needs to go, because Mel is the only one that I have seen that really understands the threat of Zionism, Talmudic Zionism, and even evangelical Zionism. And he understands the globalist agenda. And I've heard, in the past that he wants to take on the Rothschilds. I haven't seen him produce anything on that.
It's been a good bit of talk too about the whole trafficking stuff. And I don't know what's come of that, but
right. But this would be something that I know he would be interested in. I know he would. And he's got the kahunas to do it, because he's already been called an anti-Semite, anti-Semitic, and of course he's not. And he's worked through some of this stuff. He has his own studio now. Musk has given him some money. He doesn't feel the pressure, like he had before. He can be his own man.
Well, there's something good about somebody, and Clint Eastwood's the same way, of that age where they think, what can they do to me now?
That's what Gary DeMar says. That's what Gary DeMar says. Who cares what these guys say? I'm my own man.
Well, I mean, Dave Chappelle has done the same thing. What are they going to do? Cancel me? They can't cancel me.
Right.
So it's good to have people in that position.
Exactly.
Don't have anything to fear.
Correct.
All right. Any other words of wisdom before we show your trailer?
Oh man, you've gotten all the wisdom I've got. It's all gone now.
Okay. All right, folks. We want to show you Mark's. See, I got this on my Facebook here. Let me.
Brad, have you had a chance to see the film?
I actually was talking to Mike about it. I watched half of it the other night and then got interrupted by my heathen children.
Okay.
But I told Mike, I said, that was shot really well. And as he's pulling this up, I was going to ask you just 2 questions. 1, what did you guys shoot that on? And 2, what was the budget? And maybe we could dive into that after we watch the trailer.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. All right, let's do it.
Special plans this summer? All right, children, today is the last day of the year, and you're going to have to leave every life. Dispatch, 676, shots fired. Harrison Elementary School. I have 1 man down. Squad 1041 to go. Has a defining moment. Jim, what's happening? That changes everything.
An unidentified gunman opened fire on an elementary school classroom, bringing the total to 5 dead in this horrible tragedy.
It's gonna be okay. I saved your baby's life, and all this time, you tell me what's the difference? first, do no harm.
Yeah, that what I liked about it, at least the movie and the trailer, is that it kind of starts off with the music, right? And you're kind of like, okay, this is kind of like your typical Christian Hallmark movie. And I was telling Mark earlier, I was like, okay, whatever, let's see. And then it transitions into this incredible action scene, and it's got all of this logic, theological logic, just built in, that's packed, that just makes it so different than anything I've seen, on this topic.
Yeah. Well, I think conceptually, it was different than anybody's ever done before. It wasn't, it didn't lead you by the hand. It just kind of laid it all out there and let you chew on it. But in terms of technical, we shot on a Red 1. So it's old, but Red is beautiful.
Oh, it looks amazing.
They did a great job. It's
Yeah.
interesting that opening scene where the family's in the kitchen. You saw it in the we shot that at 9:30 at night. It looks like
lighting. How about that
morning.
lighting, baby? Yeah.
We had two big HMIs outside firing through the window.
Yep.
Which is really interesting. But there's so many things about that, how that all came together. That school we shot that in, Mike. I had gone to the local county government. There was a school in the northern part of the county that was abandoned. They had built a new school, and they just had an empty school. So I went and talked to those people. Said, yeah, it's not a problem. You can use it, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as they found out what it was about, those doors slammed.
They put the kibosh on, yeah.
And the reason was, they said, look, we don't have a problem with it, but we just recently had this, what's that group? The Alliance for, I don't know. It's one of those that's freedom from religion kind of groups.
Oh, it was like ACLU or what?
No, it was called I think Alliance for Freedom from Religion or something. Anyway,
those are the guys that come down hard on Gary, I think.
They had just had a battle here and lost a case, and they said, we can't afford, another one of those kind of things. So
wow.
I was actually at a funeral, standing in line, talking to a friend of mine. I said, man, I'm trying to put this movie together, and I had location, and it fell through. I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, well, this guy was a painter by trade, like home and commercial painter. He said, I'm working on a place over in an adjoining town. This Christian couple has just bought this school, and they're turning it into a soup kitchen and all that kind of stuff. So maybe you could use that. So I went and talked to them, and sure enough, we had one whole end of the school that we were able to shoot all those.
That's
and we
cool.
we came and did a lot of work, and a lot of art design, design and props and painting and stuff like that to make it work. But that just kind of fell in our lap. So, and then at the very end, Mike, that song "Life Is a Gift" by John Waller, he had done music for Fireproof and I think Courageous, and he gave us that song with no strings attached. We could use it. And it was on his new album. And he actually performed at the premiere. We got him here. He did that song on stage at our premiere. So a lot of those things just kind of fell into place. And a lot of it at the last minute, you think, well, we're done. We can't go any further. And all of a sudden, the Lord brings something, into play that makes it work. So
yeah.
You asked two questions. What did we shoot on? And budget. Yeah, the budget ended up about $40,000.
Okay.
Which was really, again, I told Mike, more than it should have been. We had a crew of about 30 people, which we really don't need on a short film. It was not necessary, but that was not. I didn't have complete control over that.
Right.
In retrospect, I like guerrilla filmmaking, and the first film I did, Mike, I'll send you a copy of it. You might enjoy it. Called More Than Diamonds. We shot that literally with a crew of 3. It's a feature film, and it was grueling, but it's so much fun to kind of make things work when you don't have the money.
Yeah.
You know, because what I found out in filmmaking is every filmmaker, every on set, we all incur the same problems, the same difficulties. But Hollywood can write a check and get it fixed, where we have to figure a way with duct tape and baling wire to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that process. So
Right.
we had a good bit of that on First Due to Harm as well. So
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, and thing is too, is that when you have a smaller crew, you're more apt to get rocking and rolling and moving. Going, guys, we're on a shoestring budget. We got to move.
Right.
We got to rock and roll. It's not, oh, we got this guy can handle it. That guy can do that. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
right.
And that's why Hollywood always goes over budget. That's why that's why everything's just bloated, and they're hemorrhaging money right now, and people are tired of it. But also their content sucks as well. So that's another issue. But what's interesting is you made me think of Robert Rodriguez, who did Sin City, who did El Mariachi, Desperado. He's actually related to Danny Trejo, oddly enough.
Machete.
Yeah, Machete, exactly. Exactly. So he wrote a book called Rebel Without a Crew.
I got it. Yeah.
You got it. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So Rebel Without a Crew, because he shot El Mariachi all by himself. He shot it, he chopped it, he scored it himself, and he was a part of that boom in the early 90s of the indie filmmakers of Paul Thomas Anderson, Quentin Tarantino, and a few others. But it's because of his hard work and his ability to just be a multifaceted creator, where he goes, well, I know sound, I can shoot on this camera, and I got a location. I can just go shoot all this in Mexico, and I can shoot it for nothing. Right.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing too, is if you're going to go shoot in LA, if you're going to go try and shoot on Hollywood and Vine, that liquor store owner goes $10K or $15K a day.
Yeah. That's the beauty of shooting here, like in the South.
Yeah.
We didn't get permits for anything. You can just shoot, and people will say, oh, you're shooting a movie? Well, come on in. We'll feed you. We'll do this. We'll do that. Everybody loves me.
Yep. Exactly. That's how it was with Victory by Submission. It was a film that I was on. And we shot in Madera, Fresno, and Clovis, and everybody was like, "Oh shoot, wait, you guys are shooting a movie? This is great. Oh yeah, we want to be a part of this. Can we can I get in it? Well, you want to sit at that booth over there? Oh, I could be in it. Yeah, sit right over there.
Yeah,
and,
they're not jaded.
No,
they're not fleecing you.
Well,
right,
in LA, like you're talking about in LA, when you're shooting an exterior scene somewhere, as soon as you start, some guy shows up with a blower and his hand out. So we'll quit doing our lawn care for, X number of dollars,
Exactly. And a lot of people, we shot at a cafe, Rodeo Cafe. And this place is like one of those places in Clovis. Like, oh, you either got to go eat breakfast at Sandy's or Rodeo Cafe. Those are the two. And their big thing was, hey, can you just make sure you get the sign in there? No problem. That establishing shot is going to be right there. We're going to pan down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's fun. I like that, man, because you definitely get team members. You don't get a bunch of leeches just wanting cash.
Right.
So that's fun.
Yeah. And, I'm not a fan of unions and the whole union mentality too. If we stand at a light, we'll be falling over about to hit somebody and somebody, that's not my department.
I can't catch it. Let it fall on their head. Yeah.
I know.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. But yeah, the thing is too, is what I like, just going back to budgets and things like that, is the cool thing about Dallas Saunier and his crew at Bonfire Legend. Dallas, he'll shoot movies. Like he shot Bone Tomahawk for $1 million. And he had Richard Jenkins, Patrick Wilson, and Kurt Russell.
Wow.
Marquette. He shot it for $1 million because he came from that Hollywood ecosystem and goes, this is ridiculous. You don't need to spend this much money.
So with those guys, was that the budget on the film or just the production?
It was the full meal deal. These guys took pay cuts. They said, we love this script.
They do back end deals for some of these guys, or
probably.
Yeah.
But the film ended up, right now to date, it's made like $15 million. And Dallas's big thing is, I want to make sure that we are in the black going into this production, because I want my distributors and I want my producers. I want everybody. I don't want everyone broke by the end of this thing. I want people being paid and getting money. And I've already been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, in the negative section where I go, oh shoot, I dumped this much money into this film that I'm producing. And this was I was just a total greenhorn. The first distributor that comes along goes, oh yeah, we'll take this thing on. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, you will? Oh shoot, here's a contract. All right. You sign. I mean, I'm in my 20s, early 20s or mid 20s. And that thing's in the abyss now. It's just in the ether of the film world. And now there's like 15 different distributors after the fact. And that's something that we don't want to fall prey to.
Yeah. So they say you always lose on your first distribution deal, you know.
Yeah. I lost bigly. So
yeah, I know. It was our loss was huge.
Huge. I lost it huge. I lost bigly on the deal, but it could have been the perfect deal, but it wasn't the perfect deal. Yeah. So.
Well, it's it's a fun industry, and for some people, it's a fun way to lose a lot of money. But
yeah, and that's that's the thing too, man. Is I've been taken advantage of. I've been used in that industry, so I've already paid the dumb tax. So anybody else that comes in, I want to make sure that I'm honest, I'm transparent, going, don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, on that Cross Wars, Mike, there was one film before it by the name of Cross, and I think they're on their fourth of that franchise now.
Wow.
The first one, Patrick Durham's the producer. He went to Sony, and he got a guaranteed deal. He had a $325,000 budget, and that film made Sony $10 million. Mostly overseas. It's a B or a D film. It's not very good, but it's a lot of crashing and burning and shooting, and overseas they love it.
There's a market.
So he keeps going back to that well. He's working. I think he's just wrapped his fourth with Sony. Very low budget. Wow. I think Cross Wars had about a $500,000 budget.
Wow.
But they make a ton of money on the back end, and they spent most of their money paying Danny and Michael Austin Green. What is his name? Austin Green.
Brian Austin.
Brian Austin Green.
Yeah.
Although he was in bad shape when he did Cross Wars. He was having some real physical problems, but
I think
I think he's in better condition now. He was kind of zoned out. It was a weird situation.
What year was that? I could probably tell you why.
2017, maybe.
Oh yeah, he's probably going through his divorce with Megan.
He was with Megan. Yeah, I knew that was going on.
Oh yeah, so that wasn't good, and she was out gallivanting around with Machine Gun Kelly, so that hurt.
Yeah.
And she's got, and I think they have 3 kids together, Megan and Brian do. So yeah, that hurts. I get that. Yeah, I'd be in bad shape as well.
And he may have been medicating too. I don't know.
That too. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it goes. Well, if they're looking for someone Cross Wars 5 that knows martial arts and is almost 40 years old, I'm available. So
I'll certainly put you in touch.
Yeah, that'd be great, man. That'd be great. I got a reel. I can send it over to him and shoot. I wouldn't mind hanging out with Vinny Jones and Danny. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Vinny, I'll send you some pictures, Mike, of me and Vinny. He was funny. In between takes, he was on the sofa like out like a light.
Well, my heart's desire is to get all of us together with Pat Miletich, have a few beers, and talk to Mel Gibson about theology, mixed martial arts, and that's in my head. That's how.
Well, Mel's a big martial arts guy. I mean, he goes
with the UFC all the time. Yep. That's why I was hoping Pat Miletich might have a connection with him, but he's tried and he can't even get to him. So
yeah. What about Mark, sorry. Joe Rogan? He's a big martial arts guy.
Huge. Huge.
Yeah. Andy understands the deep state.
I know it.
And the globalists.
And Dana White.
Yeah.
Dana White doesn't do any films that I know of.
No.
And he does not like religion.
No, he doesn't. But think about this though. He has a lot of conservative values, and we don't want to rule him out because Joe used to be a staunch atheist, but he's moving more and more in the direction where he's going, there's more to this than I know. And he admittedly will say that, like, man, if I'm starting to see more of this now, I'm understanding this, because he's aligning himself with different people like Jordan Peterson, is he's jumped into that pool as well. And he's bringing on different people that are talking more about Christianity and Christian values. And Joe sees that's how a society survives, where when you have nihilism and you have this nonsensical stuff that the left is throwing out there, he's abandoned that, right? He's abandoned that completely. So I wouldn't rule out Dana, but here's the other thing too. You got to keep this in mind. WWE and the UFC have merged, and WWE has a film market. It's WWE Films or WWE Pictures. So WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, they're distributing films. They're making films. So there's also that facet as well that we have to keep in mind, because I thought about that with my film, The Rifle Brothers, because it's about two former wrestlers turned bounty hunters that are hunting down a killer. So I went, man, if I could get this to WWE, it's game over, because this is right in their wheelhouse. It's about two wrestlers, right?
Yeah.
So,
and they got money.
Endless. I mean, that's a multi-billion-dollar corporation, right?
You know, somebody else that just came to mind who's certainly starting to catch on to the Zionist stuff is Candace Owens.
100%.
Yeah.
I told you. Did you send her the book, Mike? I told you to, like a year ago.
I need to. I need to get her address. I don't know how to get a hold of these people.
Well, it's tough, but I think, honestly, it used to be kind of like, Mark can attest to this. It used to be almost like message in a bottle stuff, when you got a hard copy of a script and you're trying to walk up to studios to get past the gatekeepers. But now you have this social media to where you can direct message somebody, where you can send a query, find an email either on IMDb Pro or it's listed on their Facebook, and you can send a query letter right to them saying, hey, and we've talked about the query letter before, Mike, and you let them know, hey, this is who I am. This is my log line. This is my synopsis. This is a little bio of me. Give me 5 minutes, 10 minutes of your time. I can pitch you this film. Or, hey, I would like to send you a copy of my book. What's the best way to send this to you, right? And most of the time it's going to go through a publicist, or it's going to go through an assistant, or what have you. But I think if you mine enough through social media or on a website, you can find them. Because honestly, that's how I met Dallas Saunier. I went to IMDb Pro. I saw his email. I watched a podcast or two with him, and he said, hey, 75% of the time I get back to people when they email me. I went, huh, all right. So I emailed him, and he got right back to me. I went, wait, this is way different than Hollywood of yesteryear. I got right to this guy. This is crazy.
Wow.
So, I mean, I think really turning on this new era of where we're at, which I've been talking about this for the past couple of years, is old media is done, alt media is in, Hollywood's dead, and you're seeing the rise of the independent filmmakers that realize you don't need the Hollywood ecosystem. You don't need it.
And the other thing about it too, Mike, I think is if you're looking to get to somebody, say a Mel Gibson, and you can get to people around him, and he starts hearing buzz about this. I've been hearing about this thing. What is this?
Yeah.
And then if you get it in front of him, he goes, yeah, my buddy over here mentioned he saw something about this, or he heard something. You know, that has an effect too. If you start building a little buzz around these people, it can open up some doors.
Yeah. I think the big thing too is what I heard this on a podcast that I keep mentioning Dallas only because he's fresh in my mind and he's looking at my stuff. And I've learned a lot from him being an executive producer, and him having access to distribution and his stuff making money. Is his one big takeaway that I've taken from him is you need to create the circus. Create the circus around your project.
Right.
As Mark was saying. So this guy over here is going, there's this action script that's floating around there. It's around here. It's pretty good. And then there's this person over here saying, well, I actually heard about you're looking for a script like this. You should check this out. I've heard about it. I haven't read it yet. Then you got that person saying the same thing. And all of a sudden, this thing, do you have a copy of this thing? Well, this is the guy that wrote it. Then all of a sudden it starts to get passed around. And that's what I tried to do with my screenplay, Rifle Brothers. I was entering in all these film competitions, and there's kind of a buzz now where people are going, well, I've heard about this, or what is this thing? And
especially if you get anybody of note attached to it, you know.
Exactly. That's game over. If you get a name attached for some reason, goes, I'm in. You go, okay, well now I have somebody attached.
Yeah, even if it's a contingency attachment, you know, just something.
Yeah.
So.
100%.
Well, guys, I want to be respectful of your time. I know, Brett, you've got to get going. And Mark, it's such a pleasure to meet you. And
hopefully we can meet face to face. Brett, where are you?
Yeah.
You in LA?
No, you know what? I'm actually so I lived in California for 35 years. I was in the Central Valley. I lived in Clovis, so Fresno County, and I am now in Arizona. I've been in Arizona for almost 5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But your
Cool.
agent is here in Tennessee, where I am, right?
She hasn't moved there. Okay, so she is actually she's in San Diego right now, but she is in the process. She's waiting for her daughter to graduate, I think, and then she'll be in Tennessee, and they're actually starting a kind of a conglomerate agency, which consists of an agency for actors and talent, but also making films. So they're starting a production company over there. And I think it's actually going to be in I don't know if it's in Nashville or Knoxville. I can't remember exactly where. But yeah, so there's a lot going on in your neck of the woods in the future. That's for sure.
Okay. Well, yeah, Mark, we're not too far from each other. You said you're in South Carolina?
Yeah, I'm about probably 3.5 hours from you.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Something like
Definitely. We will definitely get together.
that. Yeah. Now, where is oh man, the other guy that you were talking about that makes a lot of kind of small Christian films, or see in North Carolina?
Rick Welch.
Rick, yeah. Where's he located?
He is in Hendersonville, or actually Asheville, North
Okay,
Carolina.
that's an hour from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just told him about you right before the show, and he couldn't come on last minute, but I'm going to pass your information on to him. So he should be giving you a call here in a little bit.
Very good. Well, I'm
Nice.
heading to Tryon, North Carolina. I don't really know where that is. It's a little kind of horse community up there. And we're doing a Hallmark type thing come starting December 9th. So that'll be Hallmark Christmas film.
Yeah, I honestly, right now I'm attached to a kind of a Hallmarky type Christian-esque film. It's called Holiday Ranch. So I don't know when we're shooting that. I've been attached to that for like probably a year now. So I'm just
where are they shooting that?
It's Hurry Up and Wait, and we're going to shoot in Nashville, and we're just waiting for the last of the funds. It's always that's what it always is, funding, right? So
I'll tell you, it's amazing. It's well, and that's the thing about independent film. I still have a fair amount of money owed to me from films that's why I like doing television, because it's already bought, the time's already bought, the money's already there.
Yeah.
You know you're going to get paid.
Exactly. It's true. So true.
All right, brothers. Well, great connecting you guys together.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see maybe Gary. I passed this on to Gary DeMar. Hopefully he'd be another endorsement to your movie, Mark. And
good.
I know he's got connections with Kirk Cameron.
Well, Kirk, one of our actors, the girl that played Dr. Sanger's wife, met Kirk and gave him at the time. I'm not sure whether I guess we had already finished shooting. Gave him a little postcard about First Do No Harm at one of his book signings or something. So I'm sure it probably went in the trash, but he probably has a lot of, these guys have so much thrown at them. It's tough.
They're busy.
Yeah,
all right, guys. Well, Lord bless you, and maybe we'll have another show. We'll see what happens in the future.
Let me know, Brett. Nice to meet you, and hopefully we can stay in contact.
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah, let's keep it going for sure, man. I feel like I've known you forever, so this is fun, man. Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
I'll pass the phone numbers on to each other.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Adios. Later.
Bye. That was a good show.